Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our recap of the Clash, which was supposed to be run on Sunday, but due to the unexpected weather, if you've been keeping up with me on my updates with it, we got pushed to Monday. Realized that's not going to work either, so we ran it on Wednesday. Really good event. Again, it's just an exhibition. There's no points paid out, but it's a really good event. I think I enjoy it, especially at Bowman Gray Stadium. I think that's just a phenomenal atmosphere. A little rough last night. We'll get into that more. So, for what we're going to start with, we'll give a recap of the last chance qualifier. They did, they changed up the procedure, I guess, a little different. Normally they do qualifying with practice, excuse me, and then they do heat races to set the top 20. Well, they were trying to squeeze us into 1-day event versus a 2-day event. So they turned around and used the top 20 speeds in practice to set the field. And they set that up. Kyle Larson wound up sitting on the pole. And then the 21st through the rest of the entrants went into what they call the last chance qualifier, LCQ. And what happens there is they run 75 laps. The only laps that count are green flag laps. Well, my driver drives the 21 car, Josh Berry, started first because he had the 21st fastest speed and took off, led, got past, whatever, wound up eventually winning by like 7 seconds over second place. And the top 2 positions qualify for the main event, the Clash. The last spot came down to Austin Cindric, Corey LaJoy, who was filling in for Brad Keselowski, who is recovering from a broken femur from a skiing incident, and AJ Allmendinger. And those were beating and banging for the last 10 laps. The last corner, Allmendinger made a move. He bumped Cindric, who slid kind of up into LaJoy, but it also propelled Cindric ahead. So Cindric was your last qualifier for the event. And then, as I've mentioned before, the last spot, 23 spots in this race, went to whoever wasn't qualified that was the highest in the points, and that fell to Alex Bowman. So those were your 23 top 20 in speed, and then the 3 from the last chance qualifier and the highest in points. So that got that set up. Really good last chance qualifier. Was really excited to see the 21 car. That's even though it's my favorite driver, that's just, it's the oldest NASCAR team, the Wood Brothers. And it's kind of one of those sentimental things. Everybody kind of pulls for them, you just kind of want them to do good, even if your driver's somebody else. So then we moved on and we got everybody lined up and ready to roll, and we started the Clash. Now the Clash, of course, it's pretty much 200 lap races. It's 200 laps, but they had a break at 100 laps for guys to go do tires and make adjustments and stuff. And then they come back out. They're non-competitive pit stops, so you can't lose positions. You can't gain position. You come out where you were. And then they line up and go again. The beginning of the Clash was pretty good. Kind of went back and forth. You got a few lead changes. Larson, who was the pole sitter, led a few. Ty Gibbs got up there. Ryan Blaney, my wife's favorite driver, drove from 16th up into the top, 2 or 3. Daniel Suarez, who changed teams this year and is now driving for Spire Motorsports, wound up going from 20th all the way up, made a run. Josh Berry moved up into the top 10 from 21st. People were just moving and going and moving and getting bumped out of the way. It was a pretty good start to it, and I would have been happy had it ended like that. But Of course, it's NASCAR and can't do anything easy. It doesn't seem anymore. That's not a knock on NASCAR either. That's just, it seems like last year we got extremely lucky with the weather, and this year we've already started off bad. Hopefully this isn't a sign of things to come. But at this point, you had the weather make its appearance. And this is probably the first NASCAR race I've ever seen or heard of that had to deal with sleet and snow and freezing rain and rain. It dealt with it all. It was cold, well below 30 degrees out there. Some people I know up in like the northern Minnesotas and Michigans and all them there, oh well, well, Carolina's not used to that as much. So it was really, really cold out there for those people, and the fans showed up. Give the fans credit; they braved the elements. But you had an issue with that, and NASCAR kind of was using their jet dryers and everything they could, and they brought the cars in and they put on the wet weather tires, which, if you're not familiar, a wet weather tire is pretty much what you have on your passenger car. It has tread. It's not a slick racing slick. It has tread and grooves to help push water, so it's just like your passenger car. And so they're doing all their stuff with it and getting it clean, and got these wet weather tires on. And I was sitting there, and they came back out to races, and I looked at my wife and I said, this is not going to be pretty. A quarter-mile track, 23 cars, a wet racing surface, even with wet weather tires. And sure enough, shortly after they got going, it was a wreck. Luckily, on that size track, not a lot of damage done to the cars, so it wasn't too bad. Cars were able to keep going. Normally, that instance, you're going to have cars out of the race, but the weather played a major factor in that. Not only were they only counting green flag laps, so these cars going, around under caution weren't counting. That leads us to the controversy. At one point, Kyle Larson ran out of gas, and he had to get pushed back over into the pit area. And you were told the rules at the beginning of the race were you put your fuel in your car and you're not allowed to fuel the rest of the time. Well, some guys were running less fuel because the lighter car goes faster than a heavier car. So Kyle Larson ran out of gas. If I'm not mistaken, Chase Elliott or William Byron, one of the others a couple people ran out of gas. Well, a couple of people went to the pits without NASCAR's approval and put gas in their car. Well, they got penalized and put to the back of the field. And the other guys waited, and then NASCAR told everybody, go get fuel. Well, those guys got to go get fuel and keep their position on the track. So the ones that jumped the gun to get fuel got penalized. The others didn't. Caused a little controversy with people saying that's not right. We weren't expecting to have to run all these laps under caution. We had enough fuel for a 200 lap event with some cautions, but not, they ran 20, 30 minutes. This race wound up being somewhere around the 3.5 hour range, which is way too long for an event called the Clash. That's more of a regular NASCAR race length. So there was a little controversy with that. Some people just like, why? We were going to run out of fuel, which was going to cause more cautions, which would have then made more cars run out of fuel. So they came to get fuel and got penalized. Had this been a points-paying race, you would have heard a lot more about this, I think. Because there's no points involved, I think people kind of chalked it up to what it is. It's kind of an all-star event. NASCAR does have an all-star race coming up later in the year. It's going to be at Dover, Delaware. I'll explain that when we get closer. But this is kind of just like a fan appreciation almost. Baseball does like Fan Fest sometimes for before the season, players and interviews and all that. This is kind of NASCAR's kickoff. It's just kind of like, hey, it's just a fun event. So there was a little controversy with it, which, there's going to be stuff, but, NASCAR, I think, made the right decision and telling the cars in mid race, yeah, go fuel. One car, who was it? Carson Hocevar, I think, the number 77, went back into the pit, didn't put fuel in it, but changed from the wet tires to the slick tires. Well, you're only allowed to do that when NASCAR says you're allowed to do that. So they got penalized and had to go to the back for putting, and well, actually, I take that. They went to the back, but NASCAR made them come back in and put the other tires back on. So just a little controversy. And, you know, say what you will about changing rules in the middle of events, but what are you supposed to do? No, this was unprecedented territory for NASCAR. They wanted to get this race in for the fans. And I'm sure, you know, TV partners had something to do with it too, because they pay a lot of money to broadcast these. So, you know, NASCAR kind of did what they felt the best, and I don't have a problem with it. Again, if it was a points paying race, maybe I'd have a little more to say about it, but I'm not worried about it. It was still good. The finish, you know, after all that got sorted, they lined back up, started racing again. Normally at Bowman Gray, the inside is the preferred groove, the lower side of the track. Well, after the rain and the wet weather tires and all these different things, there seemed to be people on the outside, and cars were getting on the outside. I can remember sitting there watching Josh Berry, who was in like 19th, and he went to the outside. And this is normally a 2-groove track, but there was 3 cars, and he was on the far outside, probably about 6 inches off the wall. And he just started moving motor and passing. The next thing I know, I looked up and he's in 12th. And okay. So it was a really, really, really good run. Saw a lot out of a bunch of different teams. Teams that you normally see at the front, the Larsons, the Blaneys. They were doing Hamlins. They were up there doing their thing. But your teams, your Berries, your Daniel Suarez, your Ryan Preece's, your Carson Hocevar, and Connor Zilic, who I've mentioned in a few other of these episodes of my NASCAR for Beginner series. You better watch that kid. That was his first time behind a cup car like that in a race, and he at one point was up in the top 5. And I'm going to go back and look at where he finished. I didn't even pay attention to his exact finishing position. But one advantage to this was because he got his feet wet, kind of. Let me see where he finished. Where did you go? He finished 18th. Started 19th, finished 18th, but he was running in the top 5 for a little bit. So the cool thing about the way they do this event is because only the green flags count, even if a car had an issue and there was a yellow, he didn't get penalized. He didn't, like, there was 23 cars in the race, and Bubba Wallace was the only one who finished 1 lap down. Everybody else was on the lead lap. In a typical race like that, on that size track, you might have had 8 or 9 cars on the lead lap, if that. Back when they used to race, NASCAR used to race here all the time, there was times where Richard Petty led every lap, 200 laps, and lapped the field by 5 laps. The second place was 5 laps behind him. So I didn't see that this time, which was good. Thank gracious. But getting into the winner and the results, first time winner. Granted, call it what you want. Exhibition race doesn't really count. Race car drivers want to win. Doesn't matter if it's an exhibition. It doesn't matter if it's from one golf hole to the next golf hole on the cart. They're trying to beat. That's just race car drivers. Really, really excited for the guy who won. Ryan Preece drives the number 60 car for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. I've liked Ryan Preece for a long time. He used to drive over at Stewart-Haas Racing, which was my first, one of the teams I really liked when Kevin Harvick was with that team. He was one of the up-and-comers. Really, really liked the kid. super emotional. He was crying after the event. And like I said, call it what you want, an exhibition race. The kid won the race. First win in a cup car. If you go back and watch some of the videos on my page, you'll see I want to say it was the 23 or 24 fall race in Daytona where he was involved in a wreck and did like 18 barrel rolls, bouncing off the ground and rolling and bouncing and rolling. Pretty scary wreck. So really love the kid. Really good for that organization. Your second place finisher was William Byron. Ryan Blaney, who I mentioned, was third. Daniel Suarez came from 20th to 4th. Denny Hamlin's there. Chase Briscoe, Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman were your top 10. And that's impressive from Alex Bowman, too. He started 23rd and finished 10th. So it's a pretty good run. Moving on down the list, going through 11 through, we'll go 11 through 15 real quick, was Joey Logano was 11th. Josh Berry, 12th, started 21st, finished 12th. Moving up 9 spots, pretty good. Christopher Bell, Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar were the top 15. Kyle Larson, who started on the pole, finished 16th. Chase Elliott, 17th. Connor Zilisch, who I mentioned already, 18th. Kyle Busch, 19th. Shane Van Gisbergen, who was actually near the front, too. And I think if this track would have stayed wet, SVG might have had been something to say about this. But Austin Cindric finished 22nd. Tyler Reddick, and then Bubba Wallace, of course, I mentioned, finished 23rd, 1 lap down. Good race. It was fun. It was exciting. Looking forward to it. This has kind of got it going. It's Thursday. So as of 6 days from now, next Wednesday, we will be down in Daytona for qualifying. And then next Thursday, right around this time, a little bit 30 minutes later than what this is right now, we'll be on the track with the 2 dual races to finish setting the lineup for the Daytona 500. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday's the Truck Series, Saturday's the O'Reilly Series, and then Sunday's the Cup Series. If you have the Fan Rewards app, I'll apologize for not posting anything, but I didn't find out till later that they were actually giving away the 50 points for the check-in last night at the race. So I do apologize. I didn't post it. Didn't know they didn't do it last year. Coming up next week, last year they let you check in and get points for the dual races. And they let you check in, of course, for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday race. So you have a potential to earn 200, 250 points on your Fan Rewards app next week alone. So plus more than that, actually. If you set up your profile, you'll get the points. You could make, with a fantasy team lineup, which I'm going to talk about coming Monday. I'm going to have another show with your fan rewards and then a fantasy team. And you can wind up getting 350, 400 points. And if you just then set up your app and do all the stuff that I've walked through in the NASCAR for Beginners where we talk about it, you'll be able to earn somewhere upwards 500, 600 points, 700 points. So, you know, if you want free stuff, that's the way to go. Really not much else to talk about. It was a short race. There wasn't a whole lot. We can get in. I mean, I could get more in depth, but it was just a clash. I just really wanted to touch base about it, get some talks going, and we will, like I said, we'll be going live Monday with the Daytona preview. We'll be going through fantasy. We'll be going through how qualifying and everything works. We'll be going through, just Daytona. We're going to talk a little bit about the Truck Series on Monday with Dodge coming back for their first race, and I'm really excited to see what one of their trucks especially does. Tony Stewart is coming back to race a Dodge Ram in that, so we'll talk a little bit about that. I just kind of get everybody geared up. Once we start Daytona, it's 38 weeks of racing, and there's 36 races. So 2 weeks off is all they get, these drivers. They end in November, and you see we're cranking back up in February. So very short off season, very, very, very long season. But if you're a race fan, you enjoy that. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. If y'all notice down at the bottom, we've got all of our channels from the WTP Sports Dudes scrolling down there. Like, subscribe, share, hit the little notification bell. You'll know when I'm going live or any of us are going live to get your fix of whatever you want. We hit your comments up. We'll respond to every comment that's dropped. Let us know. Something y'all want to talk about, let us know. We'll talk about it. I know we got a show coming up tonight. I'll be missing that one tonight, but there'll be a show on at 7:45 tonight. It's February 5th. So y'all tune in. And other than that, everybody go like, subscribe. Have a good one. Yeah, I mentioned that. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. That's what I mentioned. One take Zay right there. That guy's got some content. Y'all go check him out too, for sure. All of them got good content. Go check them all out. I'd like to get a little thing going here. And if you're on my NASCAR podcast and you learn anything about NASCAR, hit the subscribe button. And if it doesn't cost you anything, doesn't do anything, just helps us all out here. So go like, subscribe, comment. And other than that, I'm going to jump off and go see what I can find to wrangle on TV tonight. Have a good night and stay safe. Peace.